As darkness settled over medieval towns, those who worked in the shadows emerged. They took on jobs no one envied, yet everyone relied upon. The gong farmer, ankle-deep in human refuse, clawed through the filth of night. Tanners endured acrid fumes and blistering chemicals to provide society with leather. Plague doctors, with their haunting beaked masks, moved among the sick like grim omens. In the dungeon, executioners severed heads while miners forgotten underground risked burial by rock. Whether collecting leeches or battling swarms of rats, these figures of history worked with death close at hand, leaving stories cloaked in grit and tenacity. Imagine yourself stepping back into the medieval age, to a place where the air is heavy with the mingling aromas of ripe market stalls and cramped living quarters. Here, in the bustling heart of a growing city, we uncover a tale few dare to explore. Amidst these chaotic scenes lived the gong farmers, the unsung heroes tasked with plunging into the muck of medieval society. Under the cloak of darkness, these men journeyed into the suffocating depths of cesspits, armed only with shovels and lanterns. Their labor saved townships from drowning in their waste, though it bound them to society's shadows. To comprehend the life of a gong farmer, we must first understand the medieval cityscape. Narrow alleyways winding between tightly packed structures, with no modern sewage networks to carry away the refuse of burgeoning populations. The burden of sanitation fell to those willing to engage in filthy, dangerous toil. By day, these men went unseen, like ghosts in the light of sunlit streets. By night, as cities slumbered, they rose to clear the cesspits, preventing disease from gaining a foothold. Knee-deep in a vile concoction of human waste, rainwater, and decay, they worked silently, turning the city's waste into a story untold. The hazards faced by these night workers were as pervasive as the odor they braved. Overflowing cesspools during heavy rains could easily become treacherous swamps. Imagine the bravery it took to descend into these dark pits with nothing but simple wooden shovels and lanterns, knowing one misstep could mean a lifetime of pain or an untimely end. The air was thick, the fumes potentially lethal. Many suffered grave health consequences, from respiratory illnesses to infections that marked them as both victims and warriors of their environment. Both life and livelihood were at constant odds. Society's view of these essential laborers was a blend of dependence and disdain. Despite their pivotal role, gong farmers were shunned, seen as tainted by the very filth they dutifully managed. It was an ironic twist of fate that those protecting the public from filth were in turn deemed dirty themselves. They were both respected and reviled, a paradox that speaks to the complex social dynamics of their time. Their presence was an unwelcome reminder of the dirt and disease lurking under city life's polished surface. The tools of their trade were basic, yet indispensable. Long-handled shovels for scraping sludge, barrels for transportation, and sturdy ropes to ease their treacherous descents. Each tool bore the literal mark of countless battles fought against neglect and necessity. The simplicity of their gear necessitated ingenuity. When breaks or incidents occurred, quick thinking bridged the gap between continuation and calamity, shaping these men into resourceful figures whose survival depended on cunning and perseverance. Layered atop the pungent realities of the work were cultural and religious beliefs, framing waste as sinful or devilish. Superstition colored their existence. Some believed the stench carried divine retribution, while others considered it a purgative confrontation with baser instincts. Caught between guardian and pariah, the gong farmer faced spiritual isolation as relentless as the physical. They grappled with ideals and fears mirrored by the piles they carried away, shaping the morality tales of their era through paths untold. Despite playing such a vital role, the economic rewards were paltry, barely enough to support their families. Their efforts stood as a linchpin for urban life, yet their income reflected nothing of that importance. They operated on society's fringes, a grim reminder of an age-old inequity where essential labor receives little reward. The stark reality of their poverty serves as a poignant testament to the age's imbalance, where value and remuneration were discordantly aligned. Over time, traces of their existence seeped into the annals of history. Legal documents, town ledgers, and social edicts all bear witness to the presence of these unsung custodians. While individual names may not endure, the records echo their necessity, serving as a silent acknowledgement of their contributions. Each cesspit cleaned symbolizes a chapter of resilience inscribed quietly into the tapestries of collective memory, ensuring that their actions, if not their faces, persist through history's woven threads. As we close this chapter, let us reflect on the extraordinary lives of the gong farmers. Their existence at society's edge speaks of a timeless conflict, essential yet ostracized. These dark, quiet passages through medieval towns, while not grand in narrative, remind us of the old world's complex weave of perseverance amidst adversity. Though the outlines of medieval cities have shifted, the ceaseless struggle and resolute spirit of those working within its margins continue to resonate, urging us to consider the silent guardians of present times. These custodians of public health may still toil in shadows, weaving their indelible imprints into the fabric of life. In the medieval world, leather was essential, shaping everything from footwear and armor to book bindings and harnesses. Yet the process of transforming raw hide into usable leather was anything but romantic. Tanners, relegated to society's fringes, toiled tirelessly in this vital craft. They began with animal hides fresh from the butcher, bearing scratches and patches of fur. The transformation involved an excruciatingly smelly process that started by soaking the hides in a brew of animal feces and urine. This baptism by filth set tanners clearly apart from polite society. The transformation of fresh hides into usable leather was both an art and a trial of endurance. Tanners required strength, handling unwieldy hides through each purification stage. Their workplaces, often remote due to the overpowering stench, lingered like a curse upon the wind. This odor followed tanners home, embedding in their skin, marking them geographically and socially. Yet their work was necessary, a paradox of disgust and need, touching every medieval life while pushing tanners to society's edges. The tools were primitive but effective, drawing on ancient methods remaining unchanged for centuries. The only embellishments in a tannery came from the tanner's own hands, accustomed to the feel of slick, salted hide. They wielded great wooden paddles to stir vats of lime and water meant to loosen fur. Then came scraping tools, long metal blades demanding precision to rid pelts of hair and fat, requiring skill and strength. This arduous process was a meticulous dance between chemistry and craftsmanship, using materials like alum and oak bark in precise sequences to tan the leather. Despite their exclusion from urban centers, tanneries left a significant mark on their surroundings, often harming local environments. Industrial runoff seeped into soil and waterways, tainting them with urine, lime, and organic waste. Nearby rivers often carried a noxious mix that affected aquatic life. This pollution reached beyond waters, with deforestation around tanneries as wood was stripped for tannin-rich bark. These practices altered landscapes, causing societal and ecological challenges. To be a tanner was to accept a life of social exclusion. The odor clung to them, persistent as sin. In many towns, tanners lived beyond city limits, near rivers where waters ran brown with waste. Their profession made them undesirable company, a paradox of medieval culture. This exclusion bred a community among specialists who understood the harshness of their craft. Within, knowledge passed from tanner to apprentice, shared through a subculture aware of their craft's value and their outsider status. Tanners typically began as apprentices, learning the craft's intricacies from seasoned craftspeople. This arduous learning journey started young, enduring malodorous experiences that defined the tannery. Apprenticeships lasted years until apprentices evolved into journeymen and, if fortunate and skilled, into master tanners. Mastery meant more than technical prowess. It required deep market understanding and navigating social stigmas. Masters owned properties, trained others, and kept the craft's traditions alive. Danger was constant for tanners. Handling raw materials was more than unpleasant aromas. It involved health risks. Tanners worked with urine, excrement, and quicklime, substances that were not only malodorous but harmful. Prolonged exposure to quicklime, used to remove hair, caused burns and sores. Lacking modern protective gear, tanners endured constant discomfort and hazard. Beyond tangible threats, they faced respiratory ailments from workshop fumes. The stench was socially isolating, a constant irritant. The physical labor involved, lifting heavy wet hides, subjected their bodies to relentless exertion. Despite harsh conditions and isolation, medieval tanning practices have an impact that echoes into the future, securing leather as a treasured material. Early tanners laid foundations for an industry embracing innovation while respecting tradition. Leather's enduring value is a tribute to heritage tanners who persevered. As technology mitigates modern tanning hazards, leather retains its appeal, bridging medieval history with contemporary appreciation. Religion influenced the tanner's world, as medieval Christianity's doctrines placed tanners in a curious civic place. Despite social exclusion, tanners joined guilds like other craftspeople, often with patron saints for protection. Religious festivals offered tanners temporary social integration beyond tannery yards, boosting morale and fostering community. These moments reminded them of their humanity beyond the daily grind. Such events offered reprieve from toil, valuable touchstones for coping with isolation. The legacy of medieval tanners offers lessons for today, starting with resource transformation respect. Their ability to conjure strength from raw materials embodies timeless human resilience. Understanding tanning's historical context reveals skilled hands' capacity to impact economic, social, and environmental domains. Their practices mirror modern industry's responsibility towards society and the environment. Today's artisans can draw from tanners' steadfast perseverance, valuing legacy while seeking evolution. In honoring the honest sacrifice of a pungent past, we find insights into enduring commitment, a balance of heritage and innovation. Amidst the dank streets and fevered whispers of the 14th century, a figure emerged from the shadows, both a beacon of hope and an omen of despair. The role of the plague doctor, clad in his eerie bird-like mask, arose not overnight, but as a gradual response to the chaotic grip of pandemics like the Black Death. During this era, Europe quaked under the plague's ruthless advance, with a bubonic scourge sweeping across continents and leaving a trail of anguish in its wake. As mortality surged, traditional healers faltered, their methods overwhelmed by the scale of the crisis. From this quagmire of fear and desperation, plague doctors were conceived, a last-ditch effort to bring order to the unrelenting chaos. The guise of the plague doctor, with its iconic beaked mask, stemmed from the miasma theory of disease, which mistakenly attributed the spread of plague to bad air. The masks were stuffed with aromatic herbs, a futile attempt to purify the air and fend off infection. In reality, they offered no protection from the bacteria causing the Black Death, but provided a psychological barrier, a sense of action in the face of helplessness. This haunting visage, both feared and revered, became a macabre harbinger, a symbol that death had arrived. Their costume, comprising a waxed fabric coat, a wide-brimmed hat, and that infamous mask, was an alchemy of function and folklore, designed to protect while perpetuating an aura of enigma. Every part of the plague doctor's attire served a chilling purpose. The wax-coated overcoat offered some resistance to infected bodily fluids, while the broad hat signified their quasi-medical rank, and the cane allowed them to examine patients without direct contact. This accessory, a tool of detachment as much as examination, highlighted their role, straddling the line between healer and herald of doom. In this desolate theater of plague-ravaged Europe, these figures moved like specters, evoking dread in the communities they visited. Each appearance was a grim reminder of the unseen threat lurking in the air they breathed. The practices of plague doctors, attempting to navigate the blurred lines between nascent science and deep-rooted superstition, were as grim as they were earnest. In a world yet to grasp the concept of bacteria, methods like bloodletting or leeching, rooted in humoral theory, were commonplace. These procedures, misguided and often fatal in themselves, reflected the desperate efforts to restore balance to the ill. Beyond treatment, prevention took precedence. Quarantine became a tool wielded rigorously, isolating the sick and enforcing ruthless measures to stem the tide of infection. It was plague doctors who recorded the grisly toll and, in some bleak instances, sanctioned the burning of infected homes. Yet they were more than their deeds. Their presence alone was often the first confirmation of a plague's incursion. Their fearsome gear and ineffectual remedies made them avatars of anxiety, grim, walking reminders of humanity's fragile grasp on mortality. In employing plague doctors, societies entered a somber pact, a precarious trade of community survival for the safety of the individual. These doctors, often inadequately paid, faced profound personal risk. Yet some were drawn to the role out of altruism or the allure of heroic medicine, hoping to ascend socially, albeit at great cost. Their appointment brought a strange mix of power and isolation. Tangible rewards were few. The psychological toll? Immense, as these doctors navigated scenes of unending agony and desperation. Coupled with the isolation that came from being branded as death's emissaries, communities viewed them with suspicion and reverence, caught in the paradoxical role of guardian and pariah. Interacting with communities, plague doctors faced a fraught relationship, balancing on a tightrope strung between necessity and dread. Their arrival signaled confirmed plague, casting them as ominous figures in the public eye. While fear dictated distance, these doctors served as frail bastions of hope, however cold. This isolation served to thrust them further into their role as the proverbial other, specters within their territory. This image fed the urban myths that surrounded them, tales that sprouted in panic, haunted minds, accounts of dark powers or concocted potions, fables that veiled the harshness of reality. Across Europe, the role of plague doctor adapted to the shifting sands of culture and calamity. From Italy to the more rigid practices in Germany or the opportunism seen in England, the figure remained a tragic constant, a futile embodiment of salvation across diverse narratives. Through the clouds of smoke and superstition, they trudged. Their meticulous records and quarantine measures sowed seeds for public health methodologies of the future. Despite profound missteps, their presence hinted at a nascent understanding of epidemic management, a foreshadowing of the science that was to evolve. Today, the legacy of the plague doctor persists, woven into the cultural tapestry of art and literature. Stylized and symbolic, these enigmatic figures remain timeless monuments, reminders of a time when medicine wore a chilling mask. Their images lurk within cultural memory, a representation of resilience against the very shadow of mortality, and perhaps a testament to humanity's enduring struggle against the dark forces of nature. In the shadowy alleys and echoing squares of medieval towns, the executioner lived as both an essential figure and a grim enigma, feared yet indispensable in maintaining order. Their very hands translated law into finality, thrusting them into the dual role of enforcer and societal outcast. As the hangman's noose tightened or the axe fell, what they wielded marked them as crucial arbiters of morality. To witness their work was to glimpse the community's darkest rituals of justice, grounded firmly in the belief that through such brutality, society kept its sanctity intact. Most executioners inherited the mantle from forebears, or were driven by debt or desperation into the notorious trade. Rarely was it a position of choice, embracing instead the weighty isolation that came with it, a boundary vividly drawn between them and normal society. These men lived on the fringes, in houses marked by distance, both literal and imagined, places where whispers died under the hangman's shadow. And yet, despite being shunned, their grim services were continually required, holding spectators in thrall of a dire theater. This role, cloaked in the anonymity of masks and hoods, allowed executioners to navigate public life with a crafted persona that straddled terror and respect. Mastery of tools was essential. The executioner's arsenal included the keen edge of the axe, the sturdy drop of the gallows, and the roar of the pyre. Each was a testament to their proficiency and mental fortitude. Tools left unsharpened or ropes poorly tied could transform an execution into a horror show, exposing the executioner to the howls of angry mobs, or, worse, the same fate meted upon their charges. Each device, though imbued with superstition, symbolized the legal authority they represented, doubling as both punishments and harbingers of fate. On the day of reckoning, the atmosphere electrified with a peculiar energy, a festival of the macabre. People clustered in morbid anticipation. Children held aloft to catch a glimpse of the grim spectacle, transfixed by the very idea of a life's end played out before them. Executioners conducted these events with steely professionalism. The gallows rose high in the public square. Bonfires crackled, and execution blocks gleamed under the sun's gaze. This wasn't mere bloodlust. It was a sanctioned public ritual, a reminder of the consequences inherent in the breach of moral codes. Varied methods mirrored the cultural patchwork of medieval Europe, from the grim artistry of the English hanging to the somber dignity of French sword beheadings for the nobility. Each technique bore the marks of justice, shaped by local values and class distinctions. Heretics met the flames, their screams entwining with tendrils of smoke, a fiery purification by community decree. Traitors faced the brutal spectacle of quartering, their betrayal vividly illustrated in pieces. Such harsh methodologies underscored both the tangible reach of the law and the underlying complexities of medieval morality. Embracing such a role exacted a personal toll. Branded by society, shunned by neighbors, executioners existed within an isolating bubble of dread and reluctant dependency. Their psyches warped by recurrent executions, their banquet of death served not with relish, but with resignation. While financially cushioned above common tradesmen, their wealth was a chain rather than comfort, detaching them further from societal acceptance. Amid tales of justice, stories spoke of executioners meeting poetic justice. Some eventually found themselves on the receiving end of their deadly craft, facing the hardware they once wielded. Such tales, whether whispered or screamed, illustrated the cyclical dance where fate and retribution entwined. Societies appreciated them only as far as their grim tasks would garner, with little tolerance for error or misfortune. With the passage of years, the executioner's craft has morphed into legend, an emblem of both medieval savagery and the somber dance with justice that persists across history's dark tapestry. In story and song, their legacy endures, symbolizing a bridled blend of authority and dread. As ancient fires fade, they leave echoes of hooded figures who once, amidst the chanting masses, brought end to beginning, an unwound fate string. Meditating upon their stories casts a long shadow that illuminates humanity's unerring dance with death and punishment, unfurling contemplation of where the mantle of justice lies today. As much as the axes and gallows, the doubts and questions they provoked guide us into revisiting our very nature. Within their spectral figures, we recognize a harsh lesson in power's potent dynamism, forever illustrating the fine line on which civilization teeters. A reminder of life's cyclical nature, swathed in the dark cloak of history. The journey to the depths began with a solemn prayer and farewell, as medieval miners prepared to lower themselves into the earth's dark embrace. The entrance, often just a rough-hewn hole, beckoned with both dread and necessity. In a world reliant on metals for currency, weapons, and tools, miners were both vital and expendable. Each day, these men faced the daunting prospect of descending into shafts as unstable as they were unrewarding. Their descent was fraught with physical and mental challenges, inching down slippery ladders or being lowered by crude, creaking hoists, guided only by flickering candles or meager lamps. Once underground, the miners toiled in narrow tunnels that resembled a rabbit warren more than a workplace. The crushing darkness and confining spaces were intensely claustrophobic, with air so stale it threatened to snuff out their lights and spirits alike. Isolated from the world above, they relied on hand tools, sweat, and perseverance to carve precious ore from unforgiving rock. Each day, these men faced a brutal choice: dig deeper into peril or return to the surface empty-handed, clinging to the hope that just one more strike might unveil a rich seam worthy of their backbreaking labor. Breathing itself was a hazard in this subterranean world, where dust and toxic gases turned every breath into a gamble. Silica dust from endlessly striking rock hung like a shroud in the air, its fine particles insidiously embedding in lungs, setting the stage for lifelong afflictions. Despite knowing the dangers, miners pressed on, each cough a grim reminder of the high cost of the riches above. Stone powder settled on hair and clothing, forming a chalky layer that suffocated and tormented. Invisible enemies lurked, choke damp and fire damp, invisible gases that could suffocate or explode without warning. Stories often circulated of men who narrowly escaped such disasters, tales of ghostly blue flames flickering across ceilings, a spectral herald of doom. Miners developed a sixth sense for survival, attuned to the slightest change in air pressure or temperature that signaled danger. Yet despite all caution, nature sometimes proved unpredictable. leading to tragedies that left whole communities mourning, understanding that each lost life was the grim price for the metals that supported their world. Clad with only rudimentary tools like heavy picks, hammers, and chisels, miners waged an unforgiving battle against the earth. These tools, as primitive as they were essential, offered little room for error or fatigue. A miner's hammer was an extension of his own resolve, breaking stone and coaxing minerals from their hidden veins. Each strike was deliberate, a calculated risk in the relentless rhythm of labor that resounded through the tunnels, echoing the heartbeat of the mine as men worked tirelessly, muscles straining with every swing. Injuries were frequent, sometimes fleeting, but often reshaping lives. Collapsed tunnels, falling rocks, or an ill-aimed strike could turn routine work into sudden calamity. Medical aid was rudimentary at best, often useless against such trauma. Infections ran rampant, leaving sores open to stone dust, inviting prolonged suffering. Yet in spite of all injuries, miners bore their burdens in stoic silence, driven by the need to provide for families waiting anxiously above ground. The ever-present water posed another formidable threat. As miners dug deeper, water seeped through cracks, pooling and transforming solid ground into treacherous mud. Primitive pumps were their meager defense, failing often and leaving them to wade through chilling floods. Each step a Herculean effort against muck that threatened to drag them down. Water eroded tunnel walls, creating deceptive paths that could collapse without warning. Stories of miners caught in flash floods whispered in hushed tones. Somber warnings passed between grim faces by firelight. Enveloped by darkness, miners operated in a realm unchanged and unlit. Candlelight flickered weakly in the subterranean gloom, casting shadows that leapt and danced across the jagged walls, playing tricks on weary minds. The mine was a place where day and night collapsed into one indistinguishable, dark shift. Miners emerged, blinking into daylight, bearing the shared exhaustion of their toils. This oppressive darkness bred myths and legends, interwoven with reality in the incessant rhythm of picks and shovels. Tales of restless spirits trapped in collapses or drowned in floods circulated as cautionary tales, advising patience and respect for the earth. Superstition guided them. Amulets dangling from necks, symbols etched into stone, offerings made in humble barter for safe passage. Stories of daring escapes and miraculous finds became lore, each retelling blurring truth with fantasy. Even amidst these superstitions, miners dug, fueled by hopes of prosperity that accompanied each perilous day. Hope was the lifeline driving miners deeper into despair's depths. Every chipped rock held possibility, the promise of a discovery that might transform their fortunes. The pursuit extended beyond mere riches, igniting dreams fueled by conviction. It was the prospect of unearthing wealth, dreams clothed in silver or gold, suggesting a life beyond soot-covered existence, a realm of opportunity. Pockets lined with such findings promised to elevate family stature, opening doors to roles otherwise unattainable. Yet cautious merchants of hope, miners knew that fortune could be fickle, and joy was tempered by the fear of vengeance from the earth, their precarious partner in a dance of fate beneath its punishing gaze. Wading through the squelching mire of marshes, the leech collector embarked on another arduous day. With trousers rolled up and legs bare, she cautiously sensed the murky underfoot, feeling the cold, wet embrace of marsh water seep into her skin. The air was thick with the scent of stagnant water, a mixture of decaying vegetation and fresh mud. Around her, the drone of insects mingled with the muted rustle of reeds swaying in the slight breeze. This uncomfortable terrain was familiar to the leech collector, whose livelihood depended on the creatures inhabiting these waters. Despite the conditions, she moved with a practiced rhythm, knowing each step could bring unexpected surprises. As she waded deeper, ripples fanned out from her legs, disturbing the surface that concealed the life-sucking organisms she sought. Leeches, both a curse and a gift, began to sense her presence. Drawn to the warmth of her skin, they fastened onto her, eager to feed, leaving behind barely perceptible pinpricks that bloomed red. Oblivious to the mounting weight of her living cargo, she focused on her task, filling jars with these dark, slithering harvests, each specimen potential income, in a world hungry for their perceived medicinal values. Leeches had carved a place in the annals of medieval medicine like few others. Blame it on the humoral theory, a captivating belief that health was a balance of bodily fluids. Bloodletting, seen as a way to maintain or restore harmony, found an ally in the common leech. Medieval physicians heralded these creatures as heroes of medicine. Lords, commoners, women in labor, and soldiers endured this bizarre treatment, hoping to cure maladies with remedies tinged with desperation and superstition. The humble leech collector powered the medieval medical machine, supplying the insatiable demand for these creatures. Her jars could end up in prestigious clinics or damply stored in a village healer's hut. Every step she took in her sanctuary held socioeconomic importance, knit into the tapestry of medieval health practices. Yet the unseen bloodletting she endured went largely unrecognized, her craft subsumed into medieval labor's unseen tide. Her existence teetered on a painful paradox where pain translated directly into profit, albeit meager. Each successful excursion into leech-rich marshes could put a little food on the table, but it often meant enduring bites that siphoned her lifeblood away. The unchecked bloodletting sometimes left her dizzy and weakened. Still, the bitter calculus of medieval life seldom afforded her an alternative. The demand for leeches paid just enough to entice collectors into this quietly perilous work. Onlookers might regard the leech collector with a mix of morbid curiosity and disdain. Hers was not the life of chivalry idealized by tales. Instead, it was an existence mirrored by the reflection of dark waters. Collectors embraced a life of marginalization, earning enough from their growing list of bites to assure their necessary presence in a world bound by pain's paradox. This melancholy yearning for stability found within each squirming leech attached to her legs was both her burden and bizarre sanctuary. Surviving daily blood loss turned collectors into rugged pillars of endurance. As leeches latched onto them, they carried tiny burdens until their tasks were done, then pried the stubborn creatures off. The persistent loss didn't just deplete her physically, it affected her mentally, creating an endless cycle of exertion and recovery wrapped in survival's uncertainty. Despite hardship, collectors developed a grim sense of adaptability, tuning bodily resilience to a job that could easily claim them. Seasoned collectors built a peculiar tolerance towards hundreds of bites received, masters at rationing dwindling energy reserves while maintaining focus amid discomfort. Many spoke of the surreal lethargy that blurred thoughts into abstraction, a meditative state found only when anchored to survival's necessities. The marshland, seen as both fortune and misfortune, instilled within them an unwavering tenacity, a spirit molded by poised resilience against the environment, where each day was another story chapter of endurance. Their role intertwined with poverty and economic desperation, characterizing medieval life predominantly taken up by poor society members. Leech collecting offered a meager but crucial income source. It was a job often passed through generations, a legacy bound by circumstance rather than choice. With leech markets dominated by larger merchants or medical professionals willing to pay minimal rates, collectors were trapped in a subsistence living cycle on the societal margins. Beyond medicinal use, leeches held a unique place within medieval superstitions and symbolism. Some communities attributed supernatural qualities, viewing them as symbols of longevity or mystical healing patrons. Others regarded them with dread, seeing bloodsuckers as disease embodiment or malevolence reflections. The marshes became enshrouded in myth, with collectors seen as quasi-mystical figures, walking a line between revered knowledge keepers and outcasts. Their craft demanded solitude in remote wetlands, fostering a life marked by isolation. Collectors found a strange companionship in their work, a connection to nature bordering on the spiritual. The marshes provided refuge and challenge, offering solace and a deeper understanding of their purpose, fostering resilience beyond marshy confines. It was a defiant existence fueled by stubborn determination, carrying on despite labor solitude and societal indifference. As the medieval world transitioned with new knowledge and medical advances, the leech collector's role transitioned from indispensable necessity to an era's echo. Still, their legacy persists as a testament to survival, resilience, and skill. They embodied a spirit grappling with understanding healing in the natural world. Their stories reflect broader themes resonating with contemporary audiences: survival grit, balance between human and environment, and talents honed under adversity. If this strange slice of medieval life stirred your curiosity or your stomach, give us a like. And if you're hungry for more gritty tales from the dark side of history, subscribe to Medieval Grime. We serve our history smoked, salted, and a little bit cheeky. Thanks for watching, stay grimy, and we'll see you next time by the fire. In the misty dawn of medieval Europe, a young boy, often from noble lineage, embarked on the austere path of becoming a squire. This was the gateway to knighthood, a journey steeped in relentless discipline rather than glory. It was a life lived in the shadow of knights, marked by polishing armor, tending war horses, and mastering court etiquette long before the battlefield called. The dream of chivalry demanded leaving home young, under the guardianship of a knight, absorbing lessons in horsemanship, music, and falconry as they grew. Yet every triumph was tempered with tales of those squires whose aspirations faded amidst hardships, their dreams of knighthood abandoned. Squires shouldered the burdens of preparing their knights for combat, ensuring armor and weapons. Jigsawed plates and riveted chainmail were battle-ready. Armor and weaponry weren't just tools. They were life or death, demanding meticulous care. The heavy smell of metal and leather, the constant sounds of sharpening blades, these surrounded a squire's life. They witnessed firsthand the stark reality of warfare, tending to injuries with reluctant hands, aware of steel's cruel bite before ever wielding it themselves. This devotion was as much a rite of passage as a safeguard against the harrowing chaos of medieval combat. Their days revolved around the bond between knight and steed, a dynamic central to a knight's prowess. The squire cared for the majestic creatures, meticulously grooming them, knowing that even a single unmet need could spell doom in battle. Horses were an extension of their knight and demanded unyielding attention. Squires learned to ride them with a seamless blend of strength and subtlety, mastering the delicate, intuitive language necessary for controlling these powerful animals. The unvarnished camaraderie with their steeds echoed the harsh realities lingering outside the serene, straw-lined stables. Amidst castle halls and battlefields alike, the squire lived suspended between peace and war. They bore the brunt of brutal skirmishes, often on the periphery, but never far from the swarm of conflict. They held the double-edged duty of aiding their knight in occasionally stepping into the fray, relaying messages or plucking a fallen comrade from danger. Every battle was a stark teacher, each scar a marker of unforeseen ventures in these violent theaters of chivalric duty. Training consumed their days, hard-won lessons carved into memory through bruises and sweat. Squires sparred with wooden weapons, danced the intricate steps of combat arts, and honed their strategies under the watchful eyes of their knightly mentors. Every mistake was a teachable moment, every success a building block toward knighthood. They wove theory and instinct into a tapestry of nascent battle readiness. Beyond combat, the squire's life was filled with service. Daily chores mirrored the unfaltering tide of discipline. Feeding horses, honing blades, organizing logistics. Loyalty and resilience molded these tasks from dreary necessity into a lifelong commitment to chivalric principles. Amongst the smell of hay and sweat, amidst the constant churn of duty, lay the quiet satisfaction of diligence honored over time. When ready, the squire faced a ceremonial transition into knighthood, a profound rite wrapped in ritual and reverence. Fasting cleansed body and spirit. White robes symbolized the purity of new beginnings. On bended knee beneath vaulted ceilings, echoing with prayer and promise, they received a sword, a spur, a shield, symbols of their noble duty now fully realized. For those who succeeded, this ceremony was not just a rite, but a testament to perseverance birthed from the struggles endured on this arduous path. Tournaments broke the monotony of their lives with roaring crowds and the pageantry of chivalric displays. In these grand events, squires played vital roles, managing the logistics and ensuring the readiness of knights amidst the vibrancy of festival life. They were apprentices in the fascinating world of alliances and prestige, their close proximity to the jousting field spurring countless dreams of heroism. Through every lesson and exchange, squires absorbed the chivalric code, an ethical guide threading their aspirations. They embraced courage, loyalty, courtesy, and honor, learning from the knights who walked these paths before them. This code transcended the battlefield, challenging the squires to reflect and grow, its impact echoing far into realms of governance and societal norms. As squires approached the culmination of their journey, moments of reflection emerged between the chaos of duty. Their path was a blend of shadow and light, innocence and tempered resolve, a journey beyond mere roles, alive with every hard-earned lesson. Each battle watched, every star-lit night, left a deep imprint, a grounding in honor and courage forever intertwined with the tapestry of their lives. For every night celebrated, countless squires remained in the shadows, witnesses to the noble realities of human experience, where myth and history danced harmoniously to tell their enduring tale. In the murky haze of medieval times, the rat catcher emerged as an unexpected yet indispensable figure in society's intricate web. Rats lurked in both the bustling streets of towns and the quiet corners of the countryside, carrying with them the shadowy threat of disease. The rat catcher, armed with rudimentary traps and the sharp instincts of a natural hunter, became society's unseen guardian against these ever-present yet seldom-seen foes. Burgeoning human populations aggravated rat problems, turning cities into fertile grounds for infestations. These rodents weren't mere grain thieves. They were unwitting harbingers of devastation. Rat catchers, standing at the intersection of life and death, were both vilified for working with such detestable creatures and valued as protectors of public health. The rise of the rat catcher was driven by necessity and was a testament to human adaptability. They thrived in a paradoxical existence, respected for their critical role, yet shunned for their eerie companionship with vermin. Their expertise, which lacked formal scientific understanding, was steeped in empirical wisdom. It was honed through relentless trial and error as they observed the rise and fall of rat populations, a silent, critical force during waves of bubonic plague. The rat catcher's work, though grim, was essential to medieval survival, weaving them into the tapestry of a society constantly wrestling with unseen threats. The life of a rat catcher was a relentless pursuit through shadows. Armed with simple tools like traps, clubs, and occasionally ferrets, they ventured into the dim recesses of barns and bustling alleys, even descending into the dreaded medieval cesspits. With each corner explored, they faced more than just a nest of rats. Each dark crevice could be teeming with disease-ridden fleas. The occupational danger lay not only in the physical realm, the threat of catching illnesses carried by their prey was real. Yet with intuitive methods like using ferrets to flush out rats or setting baits, they pressed on, driven by the sheer necessity of their mission. Their contraptions, although primitive, were ingeniously designed for efficiency. Traps ranged from simple wooden constructs to complex metal ones that snapped shut with lethal precision. Beyond these mechanical means, some catchers took a hands-on approach, striking out directly with clubs. For the most resourceful, ferrets were the allies of choice, nimble creatures that chased rats from their lairs. Training and managing these animals added complexity to their work, requiring quick thinking and dexterity. Drenched in the sensorial melee of medieval life, rat catchers navigated environments heavy with the pungent odor of decay and waste. Amidst the echo of scuffling paws and the sharp tang of the air, they discerned a grim beauty, a testament to their acute alertness. Each sound was a clue, each odor a signal in their arduous hunt. This heightened sensory awareness became part of their daily reality, enduring harsh surroundings with unwavering tenacity. Medieval society regarded rat catchers with a mix of necessity and unease. Like other occupations linked with filth, their work was marginalized despite its importance. They dealt intimately with one of the era's most feared creatures, conferring a stigma that set them apart from more respectable trades. In desperate times, especially during epidemics, this disdain turned to reluctant admiration. Rat catchers were thrust into the spotlight, their work a crucial line of defense against a relentless tide of disease. Their expertise, undervalued yet indispensable, highlighted a theme common in history. Those laboring in the shadows often performed the essential tasks that allowed society to function. Craftiness defined the rat catcher's art, mixing practical strategies with elements of folklore. With bait concoctions steeped in pungent herbs and traps woven from both science and superstition, they embodied the medieval spirit of ingenuity. In shadowed corners, the line between reality and myth blurred. painting rat catchers as enigmatic figures drifting between practicality and legend. Their stories, whether whispered over firelight or shared in the marketplace, added depth to their mysterious aura, a reputation reflecting both their skill and their society's fears. Against the backdrop of plague, rat catchers lived on the fringes, yet were central figures in tales of survival. Plague outbreaks elevated their status, transforming them into precarious heroes. As they waged war on rat populations, their efforts became tied to public health. Though their contributions were often overlooked, their knowledge and skills indirectly shaped early epidemiological efforts. Even in ignorance, they represented medieval society's blend of desperation and resilience against disease. In tales spun by firesides, rat catchers narrated stories teetering between humor and horror. These anecdotes painted a rich picture of their craft and characters, from clever rodents eluding capture to daring escapes from plague-ridden towns. Additionally, historical records, town accounts, or chroniclers' works sometimes offered glimpses of their role during infestations. Though sparse and understated, such records underscored their vital place in maintaining the health of communities, highlighting society's dependence on their undervalued labor. From medieval folklore to modern pest control, the rat catcher's legacy reaches beyond the annals of history. Today's pest control methods may be sophisticated, grounded in science, but they owe much to the persistence and ingenuity of these forgotten figures. On a cultural level, their stories endure in folklore, speaking to a shared human struggle against the hazards of our environment, a narrative more relevant than ever as we navigate a world transformed by time and progress. In the medieval world, charcoal was the lifeblood of progress. It fueled the forges where blacksmiths shaped iron into tools, armor, and myriad other necessities of the time. Yet few paused to consider the solitary souls who crafted this black treasure. Deep in ancient forests, far from bustling towns and villages, these shadowy figures, known as coal burners or colliers, trod the delicate line between fire and survival, casting themselves as phantoms within the woodland depths. As vital as the resource they produced, coal burners were a hidden caste, their lives intertwined with the dark embrace of the forest. Living on the periphery of society, coal burners crafted their own world within the whispering woods. Laws and edicts drove them into isolation, creating a class of near outcasts. Encased in smoke and shadows, they transformed timber into life's unofficial elixir. While few acknowledged their toil, their secluded existence bred a lifestyle as rugged as the oaks towering above and as filled with peril as the night itself. Here they engaged in a dance with nature, surviving on bark and berries, dodging predators, both human and animal, and confronting superstitions as dense as the underbrush where they made their home. To transform raw wood into the velvety black of charcoal demanded skill honed over generations. With the construction of earthen kilns resembling geometric mounds, colliers practiced an art of precise timing and control. They coaxed the timber to change state without bursting into flame, tending to each pile with a watchful eye and a strong heart. The balance between combustion and charring was delicate, requiring an understanding of air currents and temperatures. Success meant a hefty reward as the product powered society's hearths, while failure spelled disaster, ashes where riches should have been, or uncontrolled fires consuming the forest in wrathful rage. These laborers bore the marks of their trade. Soot-stained hands, calloused from the constant chore of fire building, identified their craft as much as the ever-present smell of smoke that clung to them like an old sullen friend. Villagers, sensing their distinct appearance and robust spirit, both recognized and distanced themselves from these woodland specters. Despite their crucial role, coal burners remained societal outsiders, needed yet perpetually estranged, embodying the eternal dance between mankind and nature, straddling the line where human ambition meets elemental fury. In a world prone to fanciful beliefs, these artisans occupied an ethereal space in the medieval imagination. Their mastery over fire and wood suggested an alignment with powers beyond conventional understanding, casting them as spirit-touched or even enchanters in whispered tales traded by the hearth. Alone in the gloom, coal burners were prone to visions, both literal and metaphorical, figments conjured by weariness and solitude, dreams blurring reality and the surreal, shaping ghost stories amidst their lonely vigil in the flickering half-light. But their lives were inherently tied to the fickle nature of fire, an ally and adversary. Any lapse in vigilance could lead to catastrophe, transforming the muse into a nemesis, consuming not just labor, but life itself. Every successful batch of charcoal was thus a triumph against odds. It was a giddy celebration where fear lurked just beyond the fire's fringes, reminding the burners of their fragile existence couched in the unpredictable forest. Despite their detachment, coal burners held community importance, even as social structures kept them at a distance. Villagers reluctantly relied on their craft, a silent acknowledgement of the interconnectedness in survival's precarious dance. Yet the spectral otherness of these forest dwellers prevailed, ensuring that their relationship with town life remained cautious and pragmatic. Bound by necessity rather than familiarity, their world was not solely the domain of men. Women too navigated the treacherous paths to mastery. Eclipsed by history, these women inherited the tradition, upholding it with unwavering strength and resourcefulness. Whether initiating their own legacy or continuing as widows, they embodied resilience and ingenuity within the harsh demands of the craft, blurring the lines of gendered roles as they stood beside their male counterparts under the forest's watchful gaze. As time marched onward, the Industrial Revolution heralded the demise of their craft. The encroaching mechanical age, with its new technologies and industrial expansion, ushered in an era devoid of manual crafts' intimacy. The landscape transformed, and the legacy of the coal burner, once vital and vivid, faded into obscurity. Yet even in modernity's shadow, their haunting presence lingers, echoing through history's corridors in tales like shadows cast long by a dying flame. Their existence was a reflection of human perseverance, a testament to a life lived on nature's edge. Shadows forever tied to the spirit of the woods and the fires they kindled so long ago. In medieval times, the midwife stood at the delicate crossroads of life and death. Her practiced hands and calm demeanor offered guidance during childbirth. Long before the era of modern hospitals and obstetricians, births usually took place in the dim light of home, where midwives, who honed their craft through generations, carried forth traditions like sacred incantations. They held a vital, unique position, often the most educated in matters of birth, with knowledge that blurred the lines between practicality and mysticism. As mothers-to-be faced the unknown, the midwife offered both expertise and comfort, a beacon in the chaos of labor. Yet her role stretched beyond helping deliver babies. Midwives were confidants and counselors, providing guidance throughout the pregnancy. They shouldered an enormous responsibility, one that often meant the weight of blame when things went wrong. A stillborn child or a mother lost to blood loss could quickly become an ominous mark against her reputation. Despite such daunting pressures, midwives persevered, driven by a sense of duty, underscored by an understanding of their irreplaceable role. The knowledge these women possessed was steeped in folk wisdom and herbal remedies. Nature served as their apothecary. Forests and fields offered a bounty of herbs like vervain and red raspberry leaf, turned into potions believed to support and soothe childbirth. This practice was a blend of science and superstition, reflecting medieval society's flirtation with the unknown. Herbal brews were just the beginning. Midwives also relied on rituals and charms to guard against the myriad dangers of childbirth. Amulets hung and incantations whispered. They navigated the thin line between medicine and magic, a line as blurred as the smoky air of a medieval home. Childbirth itself was an event surrounded by tradition, a communal experience wrapped in rituals both sacred and secular. As labor pains began, the birthing room became filled with supportive female relatives and the air thick with the scent of burning tallow. The midwife, a figure of calm authority, orchestrated a symphony of prayers and actions meant to appease spirits or saints. The room transformed into a sacred space. While male physicians remained at a distance, only called upon in desperate circumstances, the midwife's domain was deeply gendered, reinforcing her essential role as the arbiter of life's initiation. Becoming a midwife required years of hands-on apprenticeship, a path deeply rooted in real-world challenges. Aspiring midwives learned through observation and oral tradition, absorbing the nuances of anatomy, herbalism, and interpersonal skills. This practical education was essential, as was learning to manage the emotional and societal complexities surrounding childbirth. With few written medical texts accessible to women, midwives relied heavily on spoken knowledge, carefully passed down like secrets from one generation to the next. Their societal position was precarious. Midwives were both revered and mistrusted. They were indispensable, shepherding new life into the world and moving freely across social strata, from peasants to nobility. This rare mobility granted them access to a wealth of social dynamics. Yet their position was fraught with risk. Accusations of negligence could eclipse a lifetime of service, with whispers of witchcraft lurking around the corner, threatening their hard-earned trust and respect. Midwives faced challenges not just from childbirth's inherent risks, but also from the societal backdrop of suspicion. Mortality rates were sobering, and they worked amidst conditions that were neither sanitary nor equipped with modern medical advances. Obstacles such as obstructed labor or infection were part of their daily toil. Yet despite the adversity, midwives stood resolute, the unsung heroines of survival in a world where even a small misstep could lead to dire consequences. The looming threat of witchcraft accusations hung heavy, branding midwives as potential scapegoats whenever things went awry. Their expertise with herbs and charms, crucial to their practice, could easily be twisted into accusations of malevolence. The fear this instilled was tangible, for in times of strife, society's wrath could quickly pivot towards those who occupied mysterious spaces between life and death. Trials by ordeal were a grim reality, requiring midwives to walk a delicate line between demonstrating their healing gifts and arousing suspicion. Despite the oppressive cloud of witchcraft, midwives significantly shaped birth practices and traditions, weaving tales that enriched medieval culture. These stories, infused with hope and fear, survival and triumph, nurtured communal identity and served as both education and mythology. Through tales passed down, midwives contributed to cultural perceptions of womanhood and family, a legacy that echoed in literature and art, where they often appeared as figures of wisdom and mystique. The reach of midwifery varied across regions, each influencing their practice with local customs. In England, church authority dictated much of their practice, while Italian midwives worked within guild systems, receiving structured oversight. The diverse climates and remote communities of the Nordic regions demanded unique adaptations, with indigenous knowledge often merging with European techniques. Each midwife's practice resonated with the distinct characteristics of her locality, offering a microcosm of cultural interplay. Over time, the legacy of medieval midwives laid the foundation for modern maternal care. Their approaches, once deemed archaic, have found renewed appreciation in contemporary practice. As midwifery evolved, integrating scientific advances with timeless nurturing, the core mission of guiding life's intersection remained unchanged. This legacy, marked by resilience and adaptability, influenced families and communities across centuries. Through adversity and change, midwives persisted as harbingers of care, bridging worlds of myth, medicine, and maternal devotion, forever etched into the history of humanity.